Hello and welcome to today's video. So this time we're going to be taking a look through the second half of my vintage movie tie-in paperbacks. So sit back, relax, and let's take a look. Okay then, so we'll start off with this one, which is Spartacus. It was published by Panther Books there, and what a great jacket initially on this one. I mean, honestly, it's just almost like mind-blowing. So you've got Kirk Douglas there as Spartacus, and then it's almost like high-end art in the background there, and also with what Spartacus is standing on, holding the Centurion's helmet there. Wow, this is a real classic one. I mean, I wish I had a better copy of it, but it's the only one I've ever come across. Once again, it lists in classic movie tie-in style the actual main cast there. Along the front there, Kirk Douglas, Laurence Olivier, Charles Lawton, Peter Ustinov, Tony Curtis, Gene Simmons. And then on the back, once again, it's like an ensemble cast, isn't it? They're all there with photos of them actually in character from the movie. And then one of the classic scenes there. Fantastic. Now, as I said, mine's not the best of copies, but yeah, in the UK, this is published by Panther, 3 and 6. I've got Blair Willis, maybe 13th of November 1959. Foyles, and Foyles is a big bookshop in London, in actual fact. And then it mentions a little summary of the film with the saying it's released through Rank Film Distributors. There we are. And this Panther edition, first published in 1959. The original book, 1952, published by the Bodley Head in the UK. There we are. Now, no photos inside, which is a shame, but you know, it was unusual for books to actually do that. That was something a little bit beyond the norm, but I still think it's a great movie tie-in, that one of the best, and one I'd love to get a slightly better copy of. I've got a second Panther for us to have a look at, so I am cheating a little bit here, but this is a horror one, and it's for the Hammer horror film, The Revenge of Frankenstein, based on the screenplay by Jimmy Sangster. What a great one this, and it's quite a scarce one as well. It really is, and it just mentioned there, a Hammer Film Productions Limited horror drama, The Revenge of Frankenstein, starring Peter Cushing, Eunice Gayson, Francis Matthews, and Michael Gwynn. Yeah, brilliant, eh? Directed by Terence Fisher. It's a real key one, this. I've had 2 copies through my hands. This is by far the best one I've had. It's a scarce old book, this one. I think, copies are like £15 to £20. 1958. It was a paperback original, and there was no hardback. And this gripping drama has been filmed by Hammer Films. It's a cool one. It's a really great one, and one that you might want to keep your eyes peeled for. Now, I've gone for 2 Penguins this time. This was going to be my first choice, but I did also want to include the Misfits as well. So this is the first Penguin printing of Breakfast at Tiffany's by Truman Capote. Now, Penguin didn't, in all honesty, produce a lot of movie tie-ins. I mean, they just didn't. This is one of the better ones. It's also one of the most collectible ones. Once again, I wish I had an even better copy of this. It's not bad. I mean, it's not brilliant, but it's not bad. It's got the original... Breakfast at Tiffany's is only about 100 pages, isn't it? But there we are. And then there's got the 3 other shorter stories as well. This is the first Penguin edition from 1961, and it's got that great Audrey Hepburn cover. I mean, almost iconic. I've seen this one go for good money nowadays. It's sort of 30 plus, unfortunately, for this one in the first printing. The second printing has got ever such a slightly revised jacket on it. And there we are. Truman Capote is 36. Got a little, as Penguin do, a little potted biography there. It's lovely. It's a great story and an absolutely key movie tie-in, that one, and one I very much enjoy. And similar period when this was published was this Marilyn Monroe film, The Misfits, and she is there on the cover there with Clark Gable and Montgomery Clift. So these sort of go together. I am cheating a little bit here like I did last time with a few honourable mentions, but trying to pin down just 20 movie tie-ins, it's an impossible task. I've got a few hundred in my collection, maybe a few more, and it's just impossible. And if you're a fan of that collecting genre, which I am, well, you're on a hiding to nothing, really. This first Penguin edition, 1961. Good stuff. So next we've got a digit book, and this is, I think, once again, quite a scarce one. So it's the movie tie-in to the Edgar Allan Poe, The Fall of the House of Usher. This is now an Anglo-amalgamated film in CinemaScope and Eastman colour. Now, it's not the greatest of jackets. It's good. It's evocative of the film. I just think the actual depiction there is not great of the bloke on the front there. I suppose that's supposed to be Vincent Price. But it is a scarce one. The copy of that I've got is pretty nice as well. And it's one that just doesn't turn up very often. Cover design is courtesy of Anglo-amalgamated film distributors. So they sent the cover to it. Was probably a still that they've just put into art form. And release of the X certificate film of the same title, starring Vincent Price, and he was very much the star of that one. There we are. Yeah, it's an unusual one. It's a good one to get your hands on if you can find it. Not my favourite, but I think it's just a really good one. And the film isn't bad too. I have seen it a couple of times. This next one's an American one. It's a Dell, and I was always a very keen snooker and pool player. And although nowadays I much prefer the sequel to The Hustler, the Colour of Money, the Paul Newman and Tom Cruise movie, I still think this is a fantastic movie, and this movie tie-in is one that I've had for a long, long time. I just love it. It's superb. I mean, he was so good in it, wasn't he? And it is still a great, great movie. There we are. It's a Piper Laurie, isn't it? And Paul Newman there. Good stuff. It's the slightly smaller format because it's the US Dell. And this was the second printing from May 64. I believe the first print has actually got a different cover again, but this is obviously the movie one, and that's the one that's important for me. Brilliant, brilliant stuff. A great one. I used to, in fact, even now, I often have that one like stood up on the shelf because I just love the design of it. It's great stuff. Now a pan. So Dr. Terror's House of Horrors. Now, this was, these were sort of produced, they're called portmanteaus, and it's like 4 short stories sort of interlinked into one greater one. And they were sort of produced as a little bit of a rival to the Hammer movies that were being pumped out at that time. This is the movie adaptation by John Burke, based on the screenplay by Milton Subotsky, who was more famous for bringing the Daleks to the big screen. Now, this movie had a great cast: Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee, Max Adrian and Roy Castle. And within the 4 smaller stories, there were also great guest stars. I remember Bernard Lee's in it as well. There's Donald Sutherland as well. I mean, absolutely fantastic, fantastic film, this one. And still quite spooky. A little silly in places, particularly the Roy Castle portmanteau, but it's still worthy of a watch today. And this is actually quite a scarce little movie tie-in, this. And once again, I've had it a long time because I've had this before I even collected Pan books. So it's got quite a severe crease along there and a bit of a worn spine. It's been read a few times, but it's a good one. Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee, they are sort of on autopilot in this film, but that's not to take anything away from them. They are still great, great actors, and that's a nice movie tie-in to get your hands on. Next one, we've got this, and once again, it's a little bit plain, but I believe it's quite a scarce one. It's published by Mayflower, and the great early 70s Dustin Hoffman movie, Straw Dogs. Now, I really like the design of this cover. You've got the highlighted lady there, and Hoffman with his sawn-off shotgun in between the cleavage. I mean, what to make of that, I don't know. But there we are, very much the movie time. Yeah, Suzanne George, that's who it was, and Peter Vaughan. Yes. Once again, no stills inside this one, so it's not, it doesn't get any extra bonus points for that, but what a great cover. This is a multiple reprint cover, multiple reprint edition though, so who knows if that was the first time that was ever put into a movie time form, but it's definitely an early one, and I think it's a great example of like early 70s movie time design. So next we've got an absolute classic, and one I only got in the last sort of year or so, so it's a fairly early hodder for this format rather than a yellow jacket, and it's the tie to She. starring Ursula Andress, and there she is right on the front. It couldn't be more bold. I love the way they've used the original logo from the movie poster. Once again, this was a Hammer tie-in. Great stuff. There she is on the back. And then the other cast is listed: Peter Cushing yet again, Bernard Cribbins, Joan Richardson, Rosanda Metros, and Christopher Lee. Great stuff. The only thing this one's missing is some photos inside, which would have really made that one even better, but it's a great one. It's a superb little movie tie-in, that one. This next one is actually my oldest movie tie-in, and this is, well, by far the oldest one. I believe this dates to the late 1920s. It's published by Readers Union, and it was part of a series of movie tie-ins, if you can believe it. So it's for the silent movie, to give you an idea how old it was, Harold Lloyd's Speedy, illustrated edition. And the Reader's Library, there we are. Great cover. Fantastic with it in its wrapper. If it was out of the wrapper, you wouldn't really rate it. You wouldn't, unless you knew the title, you wouldn't really know a lot about it. But amazingly, and this is quite something, bearing in mind its time. So let me just show you the first few pages a moment. So there we are, and it just said the Reader's Library film editions have been instituted to meet a real modern demand. Interest in a film is by no means exhausted merely by seeing it. Couldn't have said it better myself. And it says that for during the 4 years that these books have been on the market, they've sold 40 million copies have been sold in Great Britain of these. How amazing is that? But here we are, Speedy, illustrated with scenes from the photoplays. So as I said, it was a silent movie, and I really like Harold Lloyd, Paramount of course. And then in the middle we actually have, if you can believe it, some stills just like a modern movie tie-in. There he is, Harold Lloyd himself. I'm trying to do this without damaging the book. And some scenes from the actual movie. How absolutely incredible is that? Brilliant, eh? I mean, it really is the business. So that is by far my oldest movie tie-in, and part of the very earliest ones that were ever produced, as far as I know. I do believe there is one that came out during the First World War, where John Buchan did sort of novelised a British Army propaganda film, and I do have the sort of the book of that, the John Buchan paperback, but I just don't know enough about it to talk about it authoritatively. But I do believe there is one even earlier than that. This is a great one, Taxi Driver. It's not the greatest of all copies, unfortunately, but the actual design of the book is beautiful. It's got a lovely painted jacket there. I'm not 100% sure who the artist is on that, but then we've got some lovely stills on the back. Now, my copy's a little bit worn, unfortunately, but it's a great film, and I love Taxi Driver. Yeah, Robert De Niro in his first role since Godfather Part 2. Absolutely fantastic. There's a young Jodie Foster there as well. It's good stuff, isn't it? It is very good stuff. It's not a very thick movie tie-in. How many pages is that? Well, they've with big print they've dragged it out to 140 pages. But here we are. This is it. There we are. Jodie Foster, Albert Brooks, Peter Boyle, and Sybil Shepherd, of course. Yeah, good, isn't it? It's a nice one. That it's quite collectible as well. So my copy's not great. It's not first printing or anything, but it's one I've had for years because I would always like to pick up books which I've enjoyed the movie of. So that's how I really got into sort of movie tie-ins. Now, one which had a bit of a revival recently because of the HBO TV series, now sadly cancelled, but it did drag on a little bit, didn't it? But this was the original Michael Crichton movie tie-in to Westworld. Once again, quite collectible, this one, and includes a 32-page photo portfolio, no less. So there's Yul Brynner on the front, and here is the portfolio. Well, it's just a normal photo insert, isn't it? But before the days of home video and Blu-rays and DVDs, this was how we relived the movies. And I did regret, actually, when I actually got to the point of filming these, I didn't pull down one of the Star Wars ones, because I would have pulled down the novelisation of The Empire Strikes Back, because that was an example where there was so much pent-up demand for the next Star Wars movie that when the book came out, it became an instant bestseller, because people wanted to know what was happening in the story. And I certainly read Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi before I saw the films. But there we are. So you get the idea. What a great movie tie-in that one is. It's I've seen copies go for as much as £50-60. I can't imagine it's like that now that the TV series has cooled off. But it is a great one. It's a good story as well. It's an early Michael Crichton, but it's a good one. So recommended. Sadly, the last one for now. Although I might do a follow-up video to this down the line if I get another 10 that I think are worthy of it. But it's this one. So this is The Making of Kubrick's 2001. So it's not an adaptation of the novel, of course. The novel's by Arthur C. Clarke. The movie adapted that instead. But this is the making of the movie. And this is, I've had a couple of copies of this through my hands, and I think it's one of the best making of paperbacks that I've ever seen. And read. There is a Making of The Empire Strikes Back, which is also a particularly good read, but this trumps it simply because it's got a 96-page photo insert, and you can see it. You can see it on the spine there. So all the copies that I've had have been this 5th printing. So it says up there 5th printing, but the book was actually published in April 70. Now I think all the copies that have come to the UK that have come through my hands are this particular 5th printing that was sent overseas. So it's got how the film was adapted and brought to the screen. You can see it's really comprehensive. There's bits of script and things like that. I mean, it's very difficult to read this book without wrecking it, I would think. But it is fantastic. And then look at this photo insert. So almost 100 pages. It's got pages from the script there. Obviously the sets. This is super cool, isn't it? And you can imagine in the early 70s what this book must have been like to literally pore over if you were into the movie itself, which, you know, I always loved it. I think it was fantastic. I even like the follow-up, 2010, the movie that with Roy Schneider, another one I think is really underrated. But there you go. A great addition, and one to keep your eyes peeled for this. It doesn't turn up that often, but it does turn up. So, you know, it's out there. It's a good one, and I think it will be a great addition to your movie tie-in collection. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed looking through 10 more, what I believe, absolutely stonking movie tie-in and movie related paperbacks. I will, I think, probably pull another 10 in another video in a few months' time. I think I've probably got enough to do another 10 and talk passionately about them, because I do just love collecting movie tie-ins. Also on the horizon, if you are on Twitter, there's an account called Tied in Film. Now Tied in Film just specialise in collecting movie tie-ins, and they are in the process of producing a brand new documentary on movie tie-ins. So as soon as I've got a bit more information about that, I'll be sure to share it on my channel. So there we are. Thanks very much for watching today. Do please give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Do please hit the subscribe button for regular vintage paperback content, and I'll look forward to seeing you again very soon. Bye.